everyone, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince!
Vince, today's question comes from 54 Ever Glorious, who asks, do modern filmgoers ruin films for themselves due to the internet, technology, etc.? I would say yes! I would love to go back to the 80s or something and go into a movie knowing nothing and letting it surprise me. Well, I'd like to go to the 80s again too, but for entirely different reasons. This is where I think guys like Nolan and Abrams are geniuses. I love how going into their films I know nearly nothing about what I'm about to see. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for the question. That's a really good one, so we're going to spend the next 25 minutes or so on that question. Vince, do you feel like you often have too much information about a movie before you see it?
Yes, I really do. And I will go so far as to say that I've stopped looking up certain things just because I get tired of that. But that also leaves me out of the loop on a lot of stuff, and people are like, why don't you know this? And I say, sorry.
Yeah, and don't you find that even if you don't want to know, it's increasingly difficult to not find out somehow?
Yeah. I mean, for example, I got into comics because of a Fantastic Four story arc. And so when the Fantastic Four movie came out, I said, I don't want to know anything. I saw a trailer. I said, that's good enough for me. I don't want to see any trailers. I don't want to read any articles. I'm good. I'm just going to go watch this movie. And people are like, no, you got to see this, or you got to look at this. Like, leave me alone. Would you stop jumping up my behind and telling me what I'm supposed to see and not see before I see what I want to see?
Yeah, saying I don't want to know spoilers should be enough for people.
Yeah. And, actually, this should tell you how severely I feel about this. I had a guy, at the time I was going to Emporia State, and I was living in a dorm, so, a lot of people come in and out of your dorm. But this guy comes up to me, he's, and I never liked this guy to begin with, but he lived right down the hall from me. And he comes into my room, and he's like, oh, Vince, let me tell you about The Departed. I just saw it. And I said, I don't want to hear anything. I said, if you say anything to me, I'm going to get really upset.
Because you're planning on seeing it.
Yeah. And actually, he pissed me off so much that I still haven't seen it.
Wow.
But he didn't tell me anything significant about the plot. He told me the type of music they used. I said, I don't want to know anything. I said, I actually said, I don't want to know what type of music. I don't want to know who's in it. I know enough already. So he comes up and he tells me about, there's this particular scene. And I said, Thomas, you and I are going to have a problem. And so he finishes telling me what he told me. And I followed through with my word. I told him I would physically throw him out of my dorm. So I did. I picked him up. I threw him out of the dorm. He hit my door. And, well, I didn't pick him up off the ground. I grabbed him and threw him.
Did he get mad at you?
Well, I did what I said I would do. He was upset, but it didn't go any further than that.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, you do feel really strongly about that. I mean, you risked a physical confrontation with that guy.
He's also not particularly stout. So.
Hell yeah, but still.
So, I'm not saying I beat up on smaller people, but when somebody...
I was going to say, does that mean that if you get really upset with me, that I should, flee for my life? because you're like, well, I wasn't risking anything. He was kind of small. I'm like, I'm screwed, y'all.
Well, he was in there for... we were talking about me not wanting to know for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And when a person's in your face for long enough, you're like, something bad's going to happen.
I have learned the hard way that you should never use the phrase with someone who doesn't want to know anything about the movie, okay, I'm going to tell you this, but it won't give anything away.
Because it does.
What could you possibly tell them that wouldn't... I'm going to give you information, but I'm not really going to give you any information. Anything you say, even if in your head you think, well, this can't possibly be anything that they would that's going to make them feel like they're gonna miss something in the experience. But you've now seen it, so you can't put yourself in the position of a person who hasn't seen it anymore. It's physically impossible, right?
And if it's interesting enough to say, then it would be interesting enough to see.
Yeah, it's like I experienced it. And so now I'm relaying that to you, and I'm kind of taking something away from you by doing that. And I want to go on record by saying I am horrible about this. I'm such a bad culprit about this. I have such a tough time with this with my wife, because I'll see something before Sarah does, and I have such a hard time not saying anything. And I have a couple of times made a grave error in saying something I shouldn't have said, where she sees it and says, yeah, I would have appreciated that a lot more if I hadn't known what I knew. And so, like these days, I try to be a lot more careful about it. It's something that I personally struggle with, not giving things away.
Yeah, I think everybody does that to some extent, but I think it's the people that are really pushy about it that are hugely annoying.
Well, when you see something that's awesome, you want to share it with people.
Yeah, and I think that's a natural, thing to do.
And especially if you see something and nobody else was there with you, right? Because, I've seen lots of movies by myself. Mm-hmm. And, I used to go see movies alone a lot. And so, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. YouTube has helped with that a lot, but...
I'm not sure why I'm sharing this, but I'm going to share it anyway. I watched a movie on Netflix because it was old. That was the entire reason. I thought, well, let's see what this is. And it had some really strange old title, and it came from either early 50s or late 40s. And at the end of the movie, they actually said, please do not share the ending of the movie with other people so as they might enjoy it as much as you did.
Don't you think maybe Sixth Sense should have had that?
Yeah.
Movies like that. Where because Sixth Sense is one of those movies that people say, once you've seen it, it's not even really worth watching repeat viewings because the whole thing is kind of for this.
The filmmaking's not good enough to, and that's a truth. Shyamalan's not a good enough filmmaker to make the ride enjoyable enough to rewatch his stuff.
I've seen Unbreakable 4 or 5 times and I haven't gotten tired of it.
I saw it twice. And I got tired of it.
Okay, fair enough. I think maybe part of that is just who's in it.
Really?
It's got 2 actors I like a lot. So
okay. I thought you were saying that the thing for me was that who's
no,
in it.
No, I'm saying the thing for me. I like Bruce Willis in certain things, and
that's the thing is I loved the story.
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised that I loved the story. I like the story a lot. I like the acting a lot. It's just the camera angles are so atrocious.
I'm with you there. I'm with you, and I know a lot of people think it's artsy and yada yada, but for me, it gets in the way of some of the storytelling. Some of it is, and some of it's not. I like the I don't know why we're suddenly reviewing Unbreakable, but I like the scene at the very beginning in the room where she's delivering and in the 70s or 60s or 70s, I forget, and no, it's earlier than that. And anyway, where she's delivering. And the whole thing is in a mirror. I like that shot. That you know what I mean. So he'll do some things that are kind of unusual and counterintuitive that do kind of work. But then there's other stuff that just totally drove me nuts. Yeah. But anyway, whatever. I don't know what we're talking about that.
But that's the thing is that I think that some people feel like they need to be connected to a movie or like, oh, I'm a fan, so I have to know everything about this before I go see it in order to fully appreciate it. If I was not wholly integrated into the viral marketing, then I'm going to have missed something, and I'm not going to enjoy this movie as much as I would have had I not experienced it.
I think you're partway there, although I don't know if so much of it has to do with how much they're going to enjoy the film. I'm not sure they do it because they think that knowing all that stuff beforehand is going to make the film more enjoyable. I think some of it is kind of. I think some of it for some people is maybe like one-upmanship, like with other fans, where it's like I can't let these other people know more than I do before I walk in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to feel physically awkward if I can tell that someone recognizes something before I do while watching the movie. I really think some people have that.
I feel like it's a credibility thing that some people are like, I'm not a true fan if I don't know this stuff and I haven't memorized it. So, and I think it is partly one-upsmanship. I mean, I've had some people out, like, I'll see a movie and they say, oh, well, that wasn't the director's intent. And I'm like, well, first of all, the director's intent means precisely jack in relation to what he actually did. And then I get into a debate.
Well, if that intent isn't, if you can't see it in the movie, then what's the point? Yeah. I shouldn't have to read a blurb about the movie before I see it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I shouldn't have to listen to the director's commentary before I see the movie. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense. I mean, I shouldn't have to listen to the man talk about his film before I see his film. It ought to stand on its own.
Which this might be a GNN topic, actually.
Yeah, maybe so.
But I've had people say, "Oh, I read this thing about the movie before I saw it, so I knew more than you did. So obviously you wouldn't have caught it." And then I say, "Well, when you watch the movie, there's nothing in it that makes that hold water."
Yeah, it would be a fair argument if this were actually true. If you were to say, well, if you saw it a second time, you'd catch it.
Yeah,
That's a different thing. And I've said that to you before, where we both saw a movie and I mentioned something to you and like you missed some plot point, and then I'm like, well, I saw it 3 times, so I caught it, and I didn't catch it the first time either. But if you go back and see it, you might like it more. And we've had that happen before. We've both had that.
Well, people miss things. It happens. But I'm saying like when you look back, you go, oh, well, maybe I could have missed something, but. It just annoys me when people think that you have to have some piece of information. You have to have something that's not in the movie to make the movie make sense.
I say, when we're talking about superhero movies or anything with source material, I say that the movie really, unless it's a sequel, in which case it's in a series, that the thing needs to, if it's working, you can go into it without having ever read anything about it. Yeah, if it's working. Now, somebody might not like it just because it's not their cup of tea and they wouldn't have read the thing in the first place. The original source material. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it only works if everyone likes it. I'm just saying that, if you, I would say, and again, I don't want to. Once again, I don't want to add more to the Watchmen debate, but I'm going to mention this real fast. I think that as much as I love Watchmen, I'm not sure I would have liked it as much had I not known the source material. And I think that's one of the things that makes it. As a lot of people have always said, it's the unfilmable graphic novel. Well, somebody filmed it and I really liked it, so I guess it wasn't unfilmable. But I'm just saying that, nearly so. Now I've heard a lot of people who saw that and liked it who didn't read the book, but I'm not sure I would have. I found myself as I was watching it going, there's so much deep stuff here that I'm really glad that I had background in it.
Mm. I think that there is I think it's worthwhile to say that you can potentially enjoy something more because you're familiar with the source material. I think that is fair.
Okay.
I think that having to have read it is an egregious mistake.
I think what's really interesting is that you said earlier, a couple minutes ago, that a lot of people think that they're not mega fans of something if they don't know everything about it before they see it. And you seem to have the opposite thing, where it's like, because I'm a mega fan of this thing, I don't want to know before I see it.
Yeah, well, for me, it's an experience thing. It's I don't care if a Poindexter down the street knows more about the Punisher than I do. If I go to a Punisher movie and I enjoy it, that's my experience, and I don't want somebody to ruin my experience for me. And there's a guy named Poindexter who's reading the Punisher.
But if you're him, leave a comment.
But yes, please. I would love to know you. But
heck, if that guy's listening, we'll give you a phone number. We'll talk to you. We'll have you on the show. Hey, Vince, let me ask you this question. About halfway in now. Let's turn this toward the media side. How do you feel this problem could be addressed? Do you think that there is anything to do about the fact that with the blogosphere the way it is, as soon as we know anything about something, 500 or more people are going to post about it. Mm. And then people are going to see it, and you're liable to run into it even when you weren't searching for it. What do you do? Do you just turn off your computer, never get on the internet? What do you do? How do you combat that? How do you keep from knowing stuff you don't want to know? And how do you let people know, look, I just don't want to know. Leave me alone.
That's the thing, is that it's really hard, I'm finding, to be informed but not informed, if that makes sense. It's I've been trying this thing where I just don't really actively search out all this information because I want to watch a movie and I want to enjoy it. And
comics are the same way. In fact, comics are worse because they're always going to tell you if somebody's going to die or things like that. That whole thing seems to be kind of about spoilers in certain ways.
Yeah, I want to be able to go out and do this, but I also want to be connected and I want to know what's coming out. But when you stop looking for things, you stop knowing what's coming out. You stop knowing what things are big deals and what are not.
That's right.
And it becomes. Essentially, it seems like the only way would be to say you want to be connected to the films or to the film medium. What you would have to do is essentially say, well, I'm going to go see a movie every week, and I'm going to pick it at random, essentially. I'm going to say, this is what looks cool to me right now. And then you're informed because you've seen a lot of stuff, but you don't have it ruined because you're not a big internet person.
Yeah, sure.
But that sounds strange.
But for some of us, that's not an option.
Yeah, I mean, it's just difficult. I mean, it's hard because especially there was a few months there where I just stopped looking things up, and then I went, wait, there's this huge display at this store. What was this movie? I totally missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out that I was only looking for things that were in my general palette, or not my general, but like my general scope of things that I usually look at. And I went, oh, that looks like a movie I would have gone to, and I totally missed it.
And what I find with comics is that if you're not looking at previews, you're going to miss stuff you would have bought.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience. I mean, like, I spend a lot of time at a comic book store, and I don't always know what's coming out because I don't always, remember to look at previews. Like, I will miss stuff on my pull list, and I'm like, I'm freaking at the store all the time. How did I not know this? You know what I mean? Like I am way more in tune to the industry than your average person, and I miss stuff.
That's one of the things that's really cool about Pop Culture Comics is he puts up little signs that says new this week throughout his store, so you know what's new.
Yeah.
And, I suppose a lot of people might do that.
I had never seen it before I went to his store.
One of the things that...
I have seen places that have a section where it's like, this is all the stuff that came out new this week, but it's still a lot easier to find stuff if it's in, by company.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, I just think that, and I mean, like, I'm not trying to do a big,
pop
ad
culture
for pop culture right now, but it is the reason that I started shopping there and why we've become so affiliated, because his organization is 100% what I think every comic book store should be. I've always thought that.
One of the things that Astro Kitty did that I thought was... Astro Kitty in Lawrence, it's a comic book store, that I thought was really neat was...
it's a great place too, by the way.
Yeah, was what you just said, which was they have a new rack, which you go in there and you can browse the new titles. You don't have to walk from area to area that are separated by all of the different publishers. His are separated into publishers, but it is a new rack. So
I see.
Well, the rack's not new, but it's a rack of new books.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that this next point is not applicable to everybody, but I find, Vince, that for us with what we do, on Geekvolution, I find it really tough to balance this kind of stuff because we get questions from folks, and I'm not complaining, and we appreciate the questions. So, please don't think that I'm being, that I'm irritated when I say this. I'm not irritated with individuals. I'm just irritated with the way the internet is. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, I may not want to know everything about a movie before I go see it, but then people want to know our opinions about stuff before it comes out. And I just like you said, it's really tough to be in tune because people expect us to be knowledgeable because of what we do. I mean, we have multiple discussions every week about this stuff. How could we do this and not be knowledgeable on current, you know what I mean, with what's currently going on? And we do videos that spoil stuff for people before they've watched it and before they've read it. You know what I mean? Like in a way, we're part of the problem.
Yeah.
But there are people who want it, so it's there for those people. And I mean, I've had lots of people who have watched Rewind, and regardless of my blurb at the beginning that says watch this before you've seen it, I'm giving spoilers and it's an in-depth analysis. There are still people who will miss that and will be really upset when I give stuff away. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're kind of part of the problem.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
What do you do with that?
Well, viewer beware, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it?
I think part of the deal is that everybody's an amateur critic, and everybody wants to speculate on whether or not something's going to be good. And it's like, if you're not talking about something that just came out, you're talking about something that's going to come out. And it seems to be like this giant ongoing puzzle. Excuse me. This giant ongoing puzzle of trying to piece together what you think this thing you're excited about is going to be. Mm-hmm. So, Keanu Reeves is going to play the guy from Cowboy Bebop. Well, what do we think about that? Well, ultimately, you don't know. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it won't. His track record, I mean, at that point, you're just speculating.
Well, and I've made this point over and over again about trailers, but I always say that, trailers aren't there to tell you what a movie is going to be about. They're there just to get you into the theater. So when some people ask me, what's your opinion on a trailer? I'm like, well, I don't want to just say, I don't have an opinion, because sometimes I do, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes certain images I'll be like, well, like, okay, the first podcast we ever did, we posted it last week for our 4,000, subscriber landmark, and just to let people hear the first thing we ever did. And you know what that whole podcast was about? It's about trailers.
Yeah.
It was about movies coming out and us speculating about them. And now here we are complaining about that. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. And the rant I did at the end of that podcast was, because I went back and listened to it again just because I wanted to know what exactly I was posting. But my rant was about Kirk on a motorcycle. I mean, I hadn't seen the movie yet. Mm-hmm. But I was like, that just seems really bizarre, Kirk on a motorcycle. And I mean, like, I guess I could have had something closer to the attitude that I have more these days, which is, well, that seems odd, but maybe, it'll make more sense in the context of the film. Of course, ultimately it didn't for me, but I mean, it still didn't work in my mind. But anyway, I'm just saying that like it's not that I don't have opinions, but I kind of resist speculating or talking too much about them, because that's kind of the game that the people making trailers and the producers of, well, not the producers of films, but like the marketing people behind movies kind of want you to play. Yeah, if that makes any sense. I mean, like there's definitely a game being played here where it's like, we want you, we're showing you the images that we think will get you into the theater. I don't know how much we can take from that. It's kind of like the media where sometimes a news story will tell you what they, enough where you kind of have the news, but there's always kind of a spin, if that makes sense. I think media for the trying to get you to see a movie is just the same thing.
That's the thing, is that you're absolutely right. But sometimes it's a great indicator of what's actually in the movie. Like
sometimes
when I saw the trailers for Spider-Man 3, I knew exactly what was going to be the problems with it. I saw all the Spider-Man 3 trailers, and my opinion was, I've seen this movie already. I know what's going to happen, and I know why I'm not going to like it. Mm-hmm. And then I went to the theater, and I wasn't quite as disappointed because I knew what was going to happen. I was like, yep. And when I got to the end, somebody's like, man, that really sucked. I'm like, told you. But when the Dark Knight trailers came out, I thought, oh, this is going to be Joker the movie. And, of course, it wasn't. It was, we know Joker is something that people like, so let's just make all the marketing about him. And, of course, it got butts in the seats, and it wasn't about the Joker, although it was great. And the Joker's, I don't need to talk about Dark Knight.
That's, of course, what people remember from it. Yeah, exactly.
So, even though people walk away going, oh, Joker, the movie was great, that's not what they saw.
So it's just a tough line to walk. I mean, like you said, I want to be connected, but I don't always want to know everything. He mentioned the guy who asked the question that Nolan is really good at this. Not telling you much about a movie before it comes out. I feel like we already know way more about Dark Knight Rises than I want to know. That's kind of, and again, I'm not complaining about anybody in particular, because, people, our viewers try to help keep us connected, and I really appreciate that, because I do like to have that, because I don't always have time to go look for stuff. So, I mean, really, feel free to send me stuff, just put in the title kind of what it is, and if I don't want to look at it, I may not look at it, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, but I probably will, because the problem is, it's just kind of a necessary evil, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think, because of what we do, that I live in a world anymore where I can afford to not know about Dark Knight Rises before I go see it. So I'm gonna know. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, like, there's already more information about that than I really wanted to. Than I don't know. There's just a few things that I'm like, oh, that would have been cooler to know when I got there. But that's just, I don't know. That's just me. Anyway.
Like when Batman turns out to be a ballerina and he's rising from hit the Swan Lake. Ooh.
I think they might have been shooting themselves in the foot by telling us that already. It's like,
yeah, I think that was going to be the big reveal at the end, is it's all been a ballet and this wasn't real. And then, I'm not going to say that joke. Anyway, moving on. I mean, but sometimes you want to be informed, sometimes you don't. I suppose that's the thing, is that sometimes you really care and sometimes you really don't. And sometimes you really care about not knowing. So...
But I guess there's just really no way around it now. I mean, I guess you just have to be kind of careful and savvy if there's certain things you don't want to know, and try to avoid as much as you can avoid. But his question, which I don't think we ever really entirely answered, was, is it ruining movies? I don't think it's ruining movie sales.
Yeah. No, I think that people feel like they can. It's a fandom, like they can get into it, and it's now I'm part of this.
Yeah, we can experience it before it's even out, which we could never do before. And that's kind of a big thing for people. I get all that. And viral marketing can be super cool.
I think it might ruin the chances of some lesser-known movies to be seen. I mean, if people are feeling like, oh, I need to be part of this thing, then really the ones that they're going to choose to be part of are the ones that have the more expensive marketing campaigns. And for these lesser-known movies, less people are going to go see them because nobody cares, nobody knows, and they can't be part of it.
Well, Vince, why don't we go ahead and go to rants?
All right.
Want to do your rant?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I bought these cards online the other day, and they were from Batman Forever, because, you know, I have a Two-Face collection. I found these cards for ridiculously cheap. I bought, like, these specifically Two-Face cards for like $1. I went, okay, here we go, I'm going to get them. So I bought them, and then I looked at the title of what it said, and I didn't realize this when I bought them, but it said Vintage Batman Cards from 1990. Or 1990 something.
No, it would have been 96.
Yeah, 96.
It was forever.
Yeah,
95, 96.
I meant the 1990s.
Right.
So,
I'm sorry, I'm always correcting your dates.
but I know when 89 came out. It was 89. So,
like, wow, they made 3 Batman movies in a year?
holy
What?
crap. They managed to ruin it immediately? That's amusing. But
Batman Forever is not that bad. Shut up.
But, well, you know, Returns and Forever.
Oh, okay, all right. Whatever.
But, so...
You do have sort of the same opinion about Forever, right?
Yeah.
Kinda?
I don't hate it, but I don't like it.
Oh, okay, all right. That's fair.
Would I buy it? I'm not certain.
You don't have it?
Nope. I don't have any of the... I only have Nolan's and Keaton.
You're going to tell me you don't... Oh, you have 89?
Yeah, I had the 89 Batman, but I don't have
almost
Returns.
got punched in the nose.
No, of course I have 89. I just don't have Returns.
I was about to risk a physical confrontation.
He gets thrown out the door. But
And for the record, as you know already, Vince is a lot bigger than me, but I would have gone for that. I would have.
But it really annoyed me. I'm like, and this isn't an age thing. This is, 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago is not vintage. I mean, 1940s is vintage. I suppose 1960s is vintage, and 1970s, sure. But 15 years ago, you still have reasonably young people who are, doing stuff significant then. So that annoys me. And, like, for example, actually Cap has ranted about this. I was listening to an oldies station the other day, and then I think it was something from the 90s came on. I'm like, well, that makes no sense.
Oh, God.
I'm like, that's a significantly different kind of music. I'm like, if you want to call it an oldie, whatever, fine, but that's a different kind of music. Like, I don't want to be listening to Paul Anka and then AC/DC. I mean... I
would have punched my radio in the nose, too.
It doesn't make any sense. So, and for those people who are
and I complain about disco on an oldie station.
Yeah.
I mean, for it to go that far, ugh. And I also complain about REM on classic rock. Knock that off. That's all I'm saying. Knock it off.
It makes no sense to me. It's not vintage. It's not classic. Would you call, oh my God. I don't know.
I gotta be more careful with what I call classic now.
It's, you can call things classic.
Yeah.
But there is a thing called classic rock.
Do you believe in the idea of the instant classic?
I suppose that's a different beast.
But... You know that it's going to have staying power. You just can tell it's going to have staying power. Like Lion King was called an instant classic. Kind of was.
Yeah.
But Disney called all of their big animated movies in the 90s classics as soon as they were in the box. So, they had a banner at the top that said classics already. Like, that came out 6 months ago. What are you talking about?
We pulled this one out of the vault.
Vince, did you know that the comic book vault is a vast wonderless wonderland of comic books?
That's true. They can be both donated to and bought from.
And bought from, that's right. Well,
yes.
Anyway.
Just
on.
Just go to the comic vault and do stuff. just don't tear up any of the books because it is a vault. So
I completely agree with your rant.
Yeah, it's not vintage. Like, you can say, like, sure, if you want to say 15 years is old, that's fine. That's old, whatever. Okay.
I hate that, but okay.
But if you want to say, like, we're living in a society where if it's more than 20 minutes ago, it's old news.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, don't you think a lot of this comes because of internet time?
Yeah, and
this actually has a lot to do with what we were talking. That's amazing.
Woo!
We just shook hands.
We shook hands. You guys can't see things happening.
Have you noticed something? I'm sorry, I got to stop for a second. I don't don't think we have hardly ever shook hands on Geeks Not Nerds, which is on film. Every couple weeks we seem to shake hands on the podcast and have to say, and now we're doing this.
Well, that's true. It's because we're sitting a lot closer during Geeks Not Nerds, and we're not facing each other when we're talking.
I think it's just because you make good points on the podcast and you don't make good points on video.
Well, there's that.
No, that was a joke. I was totally kidding.
But when somebody's like, oh, that's old. Well, that's here's something else I was going to rant about, but I'm going to loop this into this rant. The like for example, there are people out there who will just go out there and say, okay, what's in the top 10 right now? What are the top 10 songs? So they go to iTunes and they download the top 10 songs, and then they go back the next week, okay, what's the top 10 songs right now? And I want to be connected to whatever's really hot. Well, the reason why those guys are really hot because people like you are doing that. Stop it. Develop a unique personality. Develop your own tastes. For the love of God, be an individual. That really annoys the crap out of me. Of course, they are kids doing it, but...
No, I can tell that it annoyed you because of your Dr. Claw impression.
Inspector Gadget!
Gadget, stop downloading things on iTunes! Anyway.
Go, Gadget, debit card!
Go, Gadget, Spanish to English dictionary. C means yes.
But yeah, that's my rant. My rant? That's my rant. It's a different one.
Today I'm going to rant about something that's perhaps a little bit delicate. Vince and I were talking about this before the podcast. This came out of a conversation we had, and I was like, Vince, should I really rant about this? He's like, yeah, I think you should. So I hope I don't step on anybody's toes or hurt anybody's feelings when I say this, and I'll be as delicate as I can. But my rant is about geeks who kind of have to sneak around their wives or their girlfriends because their wives or their girlfriends don't want them to do geeky stuff. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm mostly ranting about this just because it's kind of a sad state that people get themselves into sometimes. You know what I mean? Where I feel like folks will get into a relationship with somebody they really, really like, and then they'll find out that and I'm sure this happens the other way too. I'm sure this happens with girls to guys sometimes also. I guess I'm just, I've known guys that this has happened to more than I've known girls this has happened to. You know what I mean? And I guess the stereotype is there's more geeky guys than there are girls. I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I know a lady, or actually I don't. I know people that know. But anyway, there's a lady out there that really, really collects Barbies, and it seems kind of excessive. And people like that are gonna be judged. Imagine anybody that's gonna, I breed cats, or at least I have 18 cats. Well, you're gonna be judged.
Well, to be fair, I think you can do anything to excess.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. I once, I won't go too far into this, but I once bought out a comic book collection that came from a lady who had divorced her husband because I've probably told this story before, because he spent all their rent money on his comic books.
See, no, that's fair.
So when she divorced him, part of the settlement was she got to keep all of his comic books, and then she sold them to me. That's how I got all my Spawn. I mean, I got a lot of really great stuff that way, but anyway, but I mean, like that was a really unfortunate kind of situation. So, that's a little extreme. So my point here is not anybody ought to let you do anything you want to.
Yeah,
that's not what I mean. I mean, like people need to be responsible, and
I mean, there are legitimate complaints out there.
Yeah, and you certainly need to put certain things ahead of your fandoms or your hobbies or what. Of course, that's common sense stuff, but I do think that there is an unfortunate lack of communication that happens between a lot of couples where things are going fine, and then all of a sudden, because it never came up before, and again, I'm using guys to girls with this, and it could happen the other way. But you'll have a girl who's like, oh, and by the way, I don't like those comic book posters in your room. I don't like those action figures everywhere. I think you buy too many comic books. I don't like that our walk-in closet, or your walk-in closet if you don't live with them, is filled with wine boxes. I don't like that. You need to get rid of them. Or you need to quit buying this stuff, or you need to quit doing this thing that you love. And then what drives me nuts is when I hear guys who will complain about that, and they've been with a person a long time, and they think it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but it doesn't. I mean, if a person that you're dating, or that you're or especially that you're married to, doesn't respect you enough, or or just that's something they couldn't get past. I'm like, let's be fair. There are weird, quirky things that some people just can't get past. So either the guy needed to break up with the girl or the girl needed to break it off with the guy. But however it is, both of these people are at fault. Yeah. Both of them are at fault.
Yeah, you can't feel like, oh, I'm in prison because it was your choice. I mean, that's...
Absolutely. You always have a choice.
I mean, ultimately it comes down to saying that you chose this, and the best you can hope for is a feeling of imprisonment where you cannot make choices. You're limited in the choices that you can make.
And I'm not saying that it's easy.
Well, no.
And I'm not saying that it's not hard when you get into a situation where it's me or your comic books, it's me or your movie, that sort of thing. What do you say to that? But I would say that 9 times out of 10, if you put a person over something else that if a person puts you in a situation where you have to do that, it's probably not going to work out, or you're going to be miserable. I mean, it's unfortunate. Now, if it's something common sense, if it's like, well, it's me or your addiction. Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, you pick her. Or you go get some help,
Like if you're spending the rent money on your comics, yeah, you got a problem.
Yeah, you better pick her. But if it's I've got $20 expendable income a month that I'm paying on comic books. We don't need it for anything else. It's the only thing I spend on myself. And she says it's me or your comic books. I'm not sure it's going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between saying that whatever it is that you enjoy, this thing that's is integrated part of you, is unacceptable. There's a difference between saying that and saying be responsible.
And people just need to have better communication. This kind of thing needs to come out very early in a relationship. When my wife and I started dating,
how do you spell that?
And I've said this before probably. I was really timid about letting her know about any of my geeky stuff because stereotypes come into play, and it's easy for folks to label you, and you're immediately I could look super excessive to a person who didn't know me and realize I'm actually pretty responsible. And I mean, I'm a little eccentric, but I'm mostly down to earth. You know what I mean? And I guess that's debatable, whatever. But it's one of those things where I was like really, really careful about it. And I think I was more careful than a person needs to be. But ultimately, it became this kind of thing where, when my wife saw my bedroom and saw the stuff that I was into and that kind of thing, not only did she accept it, but she wanted to know more about it. It was the sort of thing where you have to balance it. You can't just like throw it on a person and be like, and we've ranted about this and we've talked about this before too, where it can't be this kind of thing where, well, if you're going to date me, you have to love all the stuff I love. It can't be that sort of thing. But you should at least, and if it's a kind of person that you don't know if they're going to be okay with it, you have to approach it delicately. Which is what I was trying to do with Sarah, but again, like I went farther than I needed to. But it's kind of like, you need to lay it out on the table and be like, okay, you may not be okay with this. Before we go any further, we're on our 3rd date, we're on our 4th date. This looks like maybe it could get serious. Before we go any further, just so you know, here's the stuff that I'm into. Mm-hmm. I just think that those conversations need to happen, and they need to happen early.
It was easy for me because I met my girlfriend through a anniversary party for a
comic book store. Yeah.
So it was, when it's already out there on the table, basically my approach was, hey, I'm going to show you all of my flaws immediately, and if you're scared away, then whatever. And she wasn't, so here we are in my girlfriend and my apartment.
See, it was a little tougher for me. You know where I met mine?
Church.
That's like, who knows at that point, right?
Yeah, well, at least she's not going to be scared off by your denomination. You're a Lutheran. Ooh.
I had that going for me anyway. Well, well, hey Vince, that's all I've got about that. Again, I tried to be as delicate and careful about that one as I could, but
I think we sort of just did a mini GNN.
We did, but it was fun. But I did feel like it was something that maybe needed to be addressed.
And maybe we'll address it in the future again, anyway.
Yeah, it's a good idea. For people who didn't care about this topic but might click on that topic.
Yeah.
Well, hey everybody, thanks a lot as always for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. We sure appreciate it, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. I'm Captain Logan,
and I'm Vince.
See you next time.